G'day everyone, Joe here again. Now, in this part 2 of the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set control points on your symbols. So what are control points? Did I hear you ask that? Good question! Control points are a way that Campaign Cartographer automates how symbols get put down on a page. Now, it's very easy to think of symbols as just being rubber stamps that just get stuck down on your map. But when you need to rotate a symbol to fit, let's say, to match a wall or to be connected to a curved line or whatever, it can get very tricky and it can be very manual. Also, putting different symbols down on different layers can get quite tedious to be constantly resetting those layers. You might want to put doors onto a wall and have it cut the wall so that the door fits neatly inside it. There's all those sort of little things that really take a lot of time if you try and do them manually. And that's what control points are for. Now, the easiest way for me to talk about control points is just to start demonstrating them. Now, I've chosen 4 different symbols for this tutorial because each of those different symbols has a different type of control point. Now, let's take a look at the first scenario. That's our big staircase right there. So, our staircase, as you can see, let's think about how we want to put on the map. We just want to be able to place it anywhere on the map. If we want to rotate it, it'll normally be in 90-degree increments. So it doesn't align to a wall, you don't really put up against walls, it just sort of sits there. And actually, when you think about it, a control point isn't much use. There's not a lot of intelligence that you need for the staircase. So that's one of the scenarios, knowing when not to use a control point. So we'll just leave the staircase to the side. Now the second little case that we've got there is that lovely little false door. Now we want that to align to a wall. So let's say our wall was at a 15-degree angle. When we move our door symbol nearer, we want it to snap to that wall and just get in there. So I'm going to show you how to use a control point for this. Now, before we start setting control points, there's a few bits of really important information, and this is a really vital piece of information. Please pay attention now. If you've sort of gone off to get a cup of coffee, come back. This is important. When you put a control point onto your symbol designs, make sure it goes down on the layer that you want it to be affected by. I'll repeat that. Make sure you put your control point on the layer that you would like it to interact with. Okay? Now, in this case, a door needs to interact with walls. So the layer that we want to put our control point on when we're designing our symbol is the walls layer. So let's first of all change our layer by clicking here and then selecting walls. There we go, walls. Now, the next little trick is to change the color of the control point. Now, that's not mandatory, but I strongly recommend that you change it to a color that's really easy to see. In this case, I'm going to change it to red. There we go. And the other one is that I normally make sure that my line width is set to 0. It just makes it much easier to work with. So now that we're all set up to add the control point for this door, let's do it. Now, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be in the Symbols menu. And if you pull down, you'll actually see it's right there. It's Add Control Point. And for this control point, we're going to draw it just slightly inside the door. So the door's going to sit neatly into a wall. Set the first point. And now, if you imagine, the wall is running along here. So this door is going to sit onto the wall. And we'll just click it there. Now, when you add a control point, it's going to come up with this dialog box, and this is where the magic really starts to happen. And there's a whole bunch of settings here, and I'll just quickly talk you through them this first time. Align on insertions. That means when you insert the symbol, if it's near another object that it can detect, like a wall, it will align itself to that underlying object. So in this case, absolutely, we want our door to align to a wall. Perfect. The next one is cut on insertion. Now, what cut on insertion means is that when this object is laid down, it will cut the object which is underneath it. So if that was a line, in other words a wall, that wall would be cut from the beginning of the control point to the end of the control point. So in this case, it's a false door. We don't want it to cut that wall. Scale Y to fit. That's a pretty important one. That basically means that it will scale to fit the area. Now in this case, we don't want that switched on. Keep dynamic track scale. It's a tricky one. Let's say that you've doubled the size of your door. So you've got a symbol, instead of having it as a 5-foot symbol, you've used the Campaign Cartographer to double the size of it. When you go to put it on a wall, it will automatically revert back to one-to-one scale. In other words, it'll halve itself in size again, go back to a 5-foot door. Now, it's probably not what you want in the majority of cases, so I'm going to encourage you to say keep dynamic tracking the scale. And finally, you've got this offset from place of point. That means that when you, let's say that you put that door onto a wall, normally it would just stay there. If that's unchecked, that's it, you're done. But if you have this little text box checked, then once you've placed it, Pantographer will let you move that door perpendicularly to the area that we have set it down, which is fantastic for setting lanterns and all sorts of other good stuff. In this case, we don't want that. So just align on insertion, keep dynamic scale, click on OK. Fantastic, you're done. Let's just zoom in on that, and you can see there is our bright red control point. So your magic's already starting. Let's just zoom out again. Let's do the double door now. So again, I'm going to go Symbols. I'm going to go Add Control Point. I'm going to whack this one right in the middle of the door, from one end to the other. Now, the reason why I'm putting it in the middle of the door is because that door is going to cut through a wall. It's going to be smack in the middle of the wall line. So obviously you want it to line up in the middle. We again get this lovely control box here where the magic happens, and the only thing that we need to change is to put insertion on it. We want the door to align to a wall, we want it to cut that wall, and we also want to keep that dynamic scaling. So click on OK. And the last one we've got is the little fellow over here, the key. So again, let's go Symbols, Add Control Points, and we'll just draw him across like that, nice and tight. Now, we want him to align on insertion, but we do not want it to cut on the insertion. So the key's going to line up to our wall along here, but we don't want to cut that wall. We can keep the scale, but this is the one that we want to set on, offset from place. So let's say we've got a wall at an angle like this, and we place our key here. It's going to be nicely aligned, but we don't want it to sit sort of in the wall. We want to be able to drag it as a mapper, drag it away from that wall. And that's what that offset does. Click on OK. Right, that's it. You've now put the control points, and you really now understand everything you need to know about control points on our doors and on our keys. So we are set to party with this stuff. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create automatic colours for these, what we call Colours. So looking forward to seeing you in the next part of this tutorial. Cheers. Happy mapping.